Well, we're going to lose the license fee anyway, so we might as well in for a penny, in for a pound. Let's infuriate the whole nation.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Showbiz Showdown with me, JJ Anisiobi. Today's big question: have the BBC and The Guardian gone too far? Joining me in the studio, I'm delighted to say, is a man whose dislike of both of those brands can only be described as passionately vitriolic. It's TalkTV legend and my uncle, TV Kev.
And when you say have both those organisations, The Guardian and the BBC, gone too far, way too far, what are we talking about?
So, Roisin Murphy, Irish singer.
Yeah.
Let's start at the
Number 2 in
beginning.
the charts, I think, with her new album Hit Parade.
Number
Very
2, that's
successful,
right, Hit
yeah.
Parade, yes. And they tried to do a hit job on her. It started when she wrote on Facebook. She did the unthinkable. She tried to talk about the trans issue with scientific fact. And people have, how dare she?
Schoolgirl mistake. Schoolgirl mistake. I mean, the point about this is, she was a very likeable person if you see her interviewed. I remember she was down in Glastonbury and stuff. Great singer, great talent, very successful album, and the BBC were embracing her. Mm-hmm. And they were celebrating her work next week on 6 Music with a 5-hour special.
5 hours.
And that's disappeared all of a sudden.
It's gone.
The BBC is denying it's because what she said about the trans issues.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying that's not what it is. But it does seem to coincide uncannily with her statement that she's worried about kids who think they're trans being prescribed puberty blockers.
Yeah.
So I don't even think that's a controversial thing to say.
It's not.
Because you're talking about kids who say, I think I'm trans. And the NHS hitherto stands accused of being too ready, too willing to immediately prescribe puberty blockers, which will change the person for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
So she said she was worried about that, and she also said that she thought it had something to do with big pharma money. Mm-hmm. Again, I wouldn't say that was the most controversial thing in the world.
Precisely.
State. But because of that, she appears to be being cancelled by the BBC, which is a disgrace.
It's mental. Well, here's what she said. Here's a post, which was on her private Facebook page. Please don't call me a TERF. Please don't keep using that word against women. I beg you. But puberty blockers are absolutely desolate. Big pharma laughing all the way to the bank. Little mixed up kids are vulnerable and need to be protected. That's just true. Now, for some reason, and again, I agree with you on this one, Kev. I agree with what she's saying. She's raising good points. But for some reason, the mob and their pitchforks went after her, and they were telling everyone, don't buy her album. We cannot listen to this woman. She's got to be cancelled. Her own record label kind of turned against her. They pulled out all the funding for the publicity run. But has it worked? No, because she's gone to number 2 in the charts.
Yeah, exactly. And in The Guardian, they wrote a review of the album where they gave it 5 stars, said it's a terrific album. What a shame that so many of her fans will... there's no speculation in this. What a shame that so many of her fans will be turned off by her views on puberty blockers and trans issues. Well, how do you know they will be turned off? In fact, as you quite rightly say, JJ, the fans have not been turned off. What infuriates me about this, trans rights, all for trans rights. You live your life however you want to live it. If you want to live your life as a woman or a man, you want to go through the surgery, that's up to you. And if that makes you happy, that makes me happy. But to use this issue as a kind of club, a massive great stick to silence free speech, to say, how dare you even suggest that maybe giving 14-year-old kids puberty blockers, which will change their bodies for the rest of their lives. It will make them make a decision that cannot be reversed. To say that you're slightly worried about that and you think that maybe big pharma money might be at play here, that isn't controversial, and it should be no reason for the BBC to decide that woman is cancelled. I should stress the BBC are saying she's not cancelled, but she was due to be on 6 Music next Monday from midnight until 5 in the morning. 5-hour special. Yeah. That has disappeared. So when the BBC says, no, that's not the reason, I don't believe them.
Well, they've got to be careful, the BBC, because there's a show on there called Trans Kids, Why Medicine Matters. It was a Panorama episode. It's still available on iPlayer. And in that episode, they're saying, essentially, the same thing that Roisin is saying. They're saying that there's questions around these drugs, and we don't know enough about them. But what we do know is that they can leave kids sterile. That it can affect their brain development. They're raising the same issues. Why aren't they going to? Are they going to cancel themselves next?
Yeah. Look, what Roisin is, she has a viewpoint on this, and it's a perfectly valid viewpoint. And as you implied, JJ, it's a viewpoint probably held by the vast majority of people.
Yeah.
Others may not agree. That's up to them. But let's not silence anyone who wants to suggest that maybe changing a 14-year-old kid's body for the rest of his or her life because they think they might be trans, but, is maybe not the greatest of ideas. Why shouldn't she be allowed to say this? And why should the state broadcaster decide that this warrants her being cancelled? It's an outrage.
Precisely. And where are these, and I'm going to say lefties, because it's the lefties who are complaining.
Because you and me hate lefties, don't we? I'm training JJ. Yeah. He's going to be like me soon. In fact, he's dangerously like me already.
Where were these lefties when the Sharima Begum 10-part documentary series was on BBC? Where were they then? Where were they when the BBC were doing a celebration of John Peel? They were silent, but for the trans issue, they come out fighting. Yeah. How do we stop the mob?
Well, the BBC, I don't know what is going on there. It's as if the powers that be at the state broadcaster have decided, well, we're going to lose the licence fee anyway, so we might as well in for a penny, in for a pound. Let's infuriate the whole nation. Let's demonstrate how different we at Broadcasting House, with this weird little cult of people who work at BBC HQ, let's demonstrate how different we are from the rest of the people. It's like the Land of Hope and Glory issue, 2020?
Yeah.
They tried to ban the singing of Land of Hope and Glory at the last night of the proms, and now that issue has sort of reared its ugly head again, where the BBC films it, the BBC organises, it's at the Royal Albert Hall, and all you could see on the BBC shots, instead of the Union Jacks that used to fill the auditorium, all we saw was EU flags. What do you want to do that for? Look, you and I talked about this the other night. I think that if people want to go and celebrate their own country at this traditional moment where patriotism is to the fore at the Royal Albert Hall, that should be celebrated. Me personally, I don't really care that much, but a lot of people care about it. And I don't know why the BBC want to basically tell them to go screw themselves.
Yeah, well, I think part of the problem is the staffing at both The Guardian and the BBC. You've got a lot of these middle-class and upper-middle-class people who think they're fighting the good fight. They're the good guys, and everyone who thinks anything right of what they suggest, we're the bad guys, which is complete and utter nonsense. The Guardian readers are so deranged. They were calling for a boycott of The Guardian because The Guardian even dared to do a 5-star review for Roisin's album.
Yeah, and don't forget, the Guardian is trapped in this kind of debate hellhole that so many sort of self-styled liberals are also trapped in. And this is the debate between trans activists and, feminists. So feminists say that they want their own spaces. They don't want biological males to become into ladies' loos or go swimming in ladies' swimming pools and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And of course, the trans people say, well, that makes you exclusionary, hence, trans, exclusionary, radical feminists and all that. So if there's any amusement to be gained from this, it is really funny to watch these people who are trying, we're left wing, but they're tying themselves up in knots. Now, The Guardian is in absolute turmoil about this because, of course, both Hadley Freeman and Suzanne Moore, former top columnists for The Guardian, quit that paper because they said, women are women and we should have our own spaces. Now, the trans lobby say that's an outrage, that's exclusionary to them. Again, they've got every right to say that. I think basically it's all a fuss about nothing.
Yeah.
However, in terms of the trans, I think women who say, well, I'm not sure I want some great big bloke with a beard in a dress walking into the cubicle, while I'm, doing my ablutions. I mean, haven't they got a point? Haven't they got a point?
I'd say so. Now, look, the BBC, as a state broadcaster, they should be impartial. But The Guardian, they're left-leaning, and they're so far left that I don't even know how. I don't know where they are anymore. They've gone so far left you can't even see them. But we can't essentially expect them to be anything else than what they are, right? Because there's plenty of right-leaning newspapers who are extremely right-leaning and will use every single bit of their coverage, every inch of the paper to push their own agenda. And the Guardian essentially is just doing the same thing that the people on the other side are doing.
Well, I think it's confusing the readership of the Guardian as well, and I know this because I've spoken to both of the readers. I mean, that's the other thing, isn't it? While the Guardian ties itself up in knots and all the staff go, oh, TERFs, no, safe spaces. You know, nobody's reading the damn thing. You know why? Because it's the crappiest newspaper that ever existed. It is so boring, so boring. And the BBC, of course, is the broadcasting arm of the Guardian. You know, it's not an unbiased organisation. It is prejudiced towards the left. It is prejudiced. It's obsessed with Remain still.
Yeah.
Obsessed with Brexit. And just like the Guardian, sort of tying itself in knots over the trans issues.
You think it's time the BBC lost their funding? We saw with Freddie Flintoff.
Oh God, yes.
Freddie Flintoff and Top Gear. I mean, the pictures of Freddie Flintoff look horrific. He looks like he's almost wearing movie makeup. It's so bad.
I thought he was healed, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
it must have been such a crash.
Yeah.
And if you think, this is talking about Top Gear, of course. My personal feeling about Top Gear, I don't think it should be shut down or axed because it's dangerous for the presenters, although it clearly is.
Yeah.
You know, Richard Hammond nearly died as well.
Yeah.
Freddie Flintoff obviously had a hell crash, you know, really bad crash, as you say. Really shocking to see him. What is it, a year on now?
A year on.
Still really
Yeah,
badly
still healing.
Yeah, I don't think that's a reason. I mean, the other day somebody was saying, oh, health and safety. Oh, to that, you know. It's not about, you know, if highly paid TV presenters want to take a risk to make good television with the right insurance, they should be allowed to do so. It just seems to me, though, that this programme, you know, it's just grinding to a halt. We've had enough of it, you know.
Yeah.
And whatever you say, you know, Hammond, Clarkson, and May, that was Top Gear.
Yeah.
And ever since then,
Hasn't been the
it's
same.
been a pale imitation.
Yeah.
And it's just a sort of sad old thing that should be put out of our misery, I think.
But the Beeb have said apparently they're not going to release the investigation report into the health and safety of the show for that specific accident. But we own them. Shouldn't there be some transparency with them to say, okay, there was a crash. Here's what we found.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, the BBC is not transparent. I'm looking forward to the Jimmy Savile drama starring The Reckoning, which after about a year of being re-edited and re-edited and re-edited because they're terrified it might look like a kind of a sort of tribute to Jimmy Savile. Obviously, Steve Coogan is playing it now. You know, nobody wants to see this drama. Nobody gives it. You know, why are we revisiting this sort of moment of shame, not only for the BBC, but also for the nation? We all clapped like seals while this disgusting man committed vile crimes against underage girls and even dead bodies.
Yeah.
We all fell for that idiot.
Yeah.
You know, we know what happened. I don't think we need to revisit. The only reason the BBC is making The Reckoning is for itself, a moment of catharsis, and also to say, look how honest and transparent we are. We made a drama about our own shame.
That was the Showbiz Showdown. Have the BBC and The Guardian gone too far? TV Kev thinks so. Let me know what you think below in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.